For the level 1 burpee, we're really going to break this movement down. We're going to go 1 foot back at a time at the bottom of the burpee. We're also going to come back 1 foot up at a time before we stand. Oh, did I mention we're not including the squat jump portion of the burpee? So again, 1 foot back at a time, 1 foot forward at a time, stand tall. You're going to do this as explosively as you possibly can. Just remember, this is our most basic form of the burpee. If you need something a little bit more advanced, go ahead and check out levels 2 through 5, 5 being the most challenging. To begin this movement, we're going to set up with our feet shoulder width apart. We're going to bend at our knees and hips, keeping a nice flat neutral spine. Plant the hands flat with the fingers spread out. We're going to go 1 foot back at a time, driving the heel back, straightening out the leg. Bring the other foot back as well, right next to it, driving the heel back. We're going to squeeze our legs together at the bottom of this good plank position with the biceps forward. Head is neutral. We don't want to look up. From here, we're going to go 1 foot up at a time. Plant that foot flat next to the hand. Foot flat. Then we're going to stand up, extending the knees and hips powerfully. Then we're going to go back down into that burpee position one more time. Bend at the knees and hips. Hands flat. 1 foot back at a time. 1 foot up at a time. Stand. I'll show you this from the side and also from the front. Really take the time to get into a good plank position. This is going to help set you up for success when you move up in the different levels of burpees. Move a little bit quicker on these ones. That's how you do a level 1 burpee. For the level 2 burpee, we're still going to include the squat jump, but this time we're not only going to break down the portion where we step back with our feet, we're also going to break down the portion where we step forward with each foot. Rather than having 2 feet jump back together and 2 feet jump forward together, we're going to have 1 foot back at a time, 1 foot forward at a time, then perform our squat jump. To begin, we'll start with the feet shoulder width apart. We're going to bend at the knees and hips, keeping a nice flat neutral spine. Plant the hands flat on the ground with the fingers spread out. Biceps forward. We're going to go 1 foot back at a time, driving the heel back, keeping the legs straight. Squeeze the legs together and squeeze the glutes to lock the hips in place. From here, we're going to go 1 foot up at a time. As you come up, bring that foot flat next to the hand. And then we're going to extend the knees and hips explosively, driving the shoulders towards the ceiling. We're going to land nice and soft, bending at the knees and hips, keeping a nice flat neutral spine. Then we'll begin the movement again. Hands flat, 1 foot back at a time, 1 foot up at a time. Extend. I'll show you from the side and also from the front. Again, shoulder width with the feet. Plant both hands flat, 1 foot back at a time, legs straight. Make sure the hips don't drop down. They don't pop up. 1 foot up at a time. Jump. Plant the hands. And from the front. Land soft. That's how you do a level 2 burpee. For the level 3 burpee, we're going to still include the squat jump, but we're going to break down the portion of the movement where our feet go back together. Rather than going back together, we're going to go back 1 foot at a time. To begin this movement, we'll have the feet shoulder width apart. We're going to bend at the knees and hips, lowering ourselves to the ground as we maintain a nice flat neutral spine. Plant both hands flat with the fingers spread out. Each foot is going to go back 1 at a time. Drive the heel back, straighten out the leg. Other foot comes down, drive the heel back, feet together. Squeeze the legs together and squeeze the glutes to lock the hips in place. From here, both feet are going to come back up explosively, landing flat just outside the hands. Nice and soft. Then we're going to extend the knees and hips, driving the shoulders towards the ceiling. We're going to land soft, keeping a nice flat neutral spine. At the bottom of this movement, it'll set us up for the next burpee. Plant both hands flat, 1 foot back at a time. Legs are straight, lock the hips in place. Feet come back up together, flat, extend, and jump. I'll show you this from the side and from the front. And from the front. Make sure you're landing soft after the jump, allowing your knees and hips to bend and absorb the impact properly, keeping a nice flat spine. Make sure when you do get into the bottom position of the burpee and both feet come back together, you do allow your hips and everything to get in line so you're in a good plank position. We want to avoid having the hips high or sagging low. When you come back up with the feet, make sure they're flat as opposed to landing on the balls of the feet. Keep those things in mind. That's how you do a level 3 burpee. For the level 4 burpee, we're going to include a squat jump, but we're going to go without the push-up. To get started, we'll begin with the feet a little wider than shoulder width. We're going to bend at our knees and hips, maintaining a nice flat neutral spine. Plant the hands flat on the ground with the fingers spread out. Both feet are going to bounce back together. Feet are together, driving the heels back. Squeeze the legs together and squeeze the glutes to lock the hips in place. We want to avoid sagging the hips or popping the hips up. We also want to avoid having the shoulders shrugged forward. From this position, the head stays neutral instead of being up. Since we're going without the push-up, both feet are going to explode back up next to the hands, flat, landing softly. Then we're going to extend the knees and hips, driving the shoulders towards the ceiling, performing our full squat jump, landing nice and soft. Maintaining a nice flat neutral spine in that landing. At the bottom of the landing, we'll set up for the next burpee. Plant the hands flat, feet back together, squeeze the legs together, both feet come back up, and explode. I'll show you from the side and from the front. Make sure you allow yourself to go into a full plank position. It's a common mistake because people are trying to move so fast with this variation that they forget to get the hips in a good spot. So the hips stay really high. We want to make sure that we're locking out in a good hip position, keeping a nice straight line from our shoulders down to our heels. And when we jump up, we want to drive with as much force as possible. And when we land, we want to land soft. We want to avoid any heavy impact driving through our body. Allow your knees and hips to absorb the forces and keep the spine flat and neutral. Avoid letting it cave in, or it's not going to set up the next movement very well. That's how you do the level 4 burpee.